Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this 5th of August meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. I'll start the meeting. We have some members of the public today as well. We're just waiting on one arrival, and so I might just push the public forum back to before item 6.1, just to give a little bit more time. So let's start the meeting. Remember to use your microphones, being live streamed. Apologies. Are there any apologies this morning? I've received none. If no, they're very good. Let's skip public forum for the time being. Are there any conflict of interest declarations? No, there being none. We'll move on to the fact that there are no items of extraordinary business. So that brings us to confirmation of the minutes of Te Puna Kōrero of the 29th of July 2021. I'll move those as a true and correct record to get it on the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Was that you, Jeff? Yep, sorry. Thank you. Anybody... Any comments or corrections to make? No? That being the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So that does bring us on to public forum. Look at that. Just no, you're perfectly on time. So we now have Marguerite Monks and Mescal Bailey who are going to talk to us about transferring the ownership of Brady gravesite to the council. So, ladies, welcome. Sorry, it's a bit of a straight into the. You've got 5 minutes to talk to us.
We won't even take that, will it, Marguerite?
No. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's lovely to see such a full council, and thank you for your patience in hearing us. We have been in the district as a family since 1840, and in that time we consider that the Bradys have contributed more than their share towards the pioneering spirit of this community. We have served in many ways in the community, and I know myself, I live in Paraparaumu at the moment, but Mescal, my cousin, will speak about living in Porirua and Parramatta continuously since 1840, and we believe that the situation of the Brady grave has got to the stage where it should be part of the community and not just something stuck on a hill that we are expected to go up there and clear gorse, etc., etc. And it's only through the continued efforts of the Whitby community that the grave remains today and hasn't been bulldozed in the subdivisions. But anyway, Mescal.
Okay. So is it formal? Do you need to stand? Or?
No, you don't need to
Great.
stand.
Thank you. I'll just sit. So for decades now, we've struggled to keep the gravesite looking pristine. As the subdivisions around it were built, it became harder and harder. At first, we were landlocked, and then there was causing different things. But over the years, we've attended many meetings, and we've attended read many long documents, and we've done total research into the ownership of the grave, because it seems through all of the periods of this time, all paperwork relating to the ownership of the grave has been lost, and many people have tried. So the developers, when they were doing Whitby, they had specialists in that tried. We had people from our own family, and the council themselves actually did their own research and went to Lynn's as well. So that's lost. So what we're struggling with now is we're all getting older. The younger generation are not going to be up there with their picks and axes and, mowing the lawns. So what we wanted to do is, yes, we want to give it back to the community, so it's there to share. It's all done. It's been nice. It's got the most of you probably at some stage looked at it. It's got the plaques and everything there. It's got access from both sides, and for the communities now that are doing lots of walking and out in the community on these tracks and things, it's the place to go to. So it's on Google Maps. If you look up, Brady gravesite, it's all there now. It's connected. So what we came to the resolution of is that we would very much like for it to be taken over by the council so that it can remain not, covered in gorse and basically too the pine trees keep growing over it because obviously Silver Woods was the right next door to it in the beginning. So so that's where we are today. We've all agreed, and I've fed it out to the family, as Marguerite has on her side, and they've all agreed that it's time that we look at a future plan, that it will be in it's in the district plan now, but a future plan for it to be looked after.
Thank you, both of you. Now, you can. Are there any questions from councillors at this stage? Yeah, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ms. Scull. Ownership of the land seems to me to be the trigger here, that this could be a very difficult exercise for council to actually establish that, and there's nothing to stop somebody coming out of the woodwork in the distant future to say, hey, we have ownership of that piece of land. How can we guarantee that that won't happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's a question for you to answer or not.
We've been over the decades. We've obviously had many people engaged at doing that. So Truebridge, Calendar Truebridge actually had specialists assigned to trying to research and find those documents. There were other people involved on the solicitor's side that tried to get documents held in the High Court. And they've all failed, and the council once again tried to do it, and there's no history of anything. Most of the people that are from the descendants, so we've been guardians of the gravesite for the last 30 years or so, and there has been no one popping out of the woodwork. We don't have any unknowns that we're unaware of that are going to come forward and claim, and we've signed off on this, the Bradys that are on both descendants' sides, so...
Okay, thanks, Ms. Scull. And it's something you can canvass further when we get onto the paper. Josh.
Kia ora, thank you. Looking at the options for when we're making a decision around this, if we do decide to take over responsibility, we've basically been given two options, and can I assume that you're across what those options are in terms of the more and less expensive maintenance costs? Have you had a chance to see the paper, or...? No, okay. So, but basically, we've got two options that we're able to look at here. One of which is about 3 times the cost of the other, and would involve a higher degree of maintenance. And I guess I was interested in whether you have strong feelings around the degree of maintenance required, or if you're just looking for it to be taken on to the responsibility of council, and you don't have a strong view on that.
Have you been there?
I haven't. No.
Well, we'd like it to look like it looks today. So the lawns are mowed, and if the little seedlings come off the pine trees that they're picked up, they for the last, say, 5 years, the Whitby Residents Association have done a really good job, and they had sponsorship money that came through because we've had money donated for the upkeep of it, but that's run out now, and the association is dwindling with members, so we'd like it to be, just really mowed, and all the planting's been done. Everything's been done. It's really just to have the just mowed and weeded, and because the gorse keeps coming through from the section next door, which isn't as well maintained. Yeah.
So those are the really key things for you, as long as it's mowed and weeded.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks very much.
Are there any other questions from councillors to Ms. Scull and Marguerite before we move on to the substantive paper? No? Thank you, ladies. You can go and sit down and watch the rest of the proceedings as we now consider the paper. Thank you. Right, so that moves us directly to item 6.1, which is the issue of transferring ownership, as it says, of Brady gravesite to the council. I'll take it... I'm going to move the paper to get it onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Mayor Baker, thank you very much. I I take it that you've read the paper. We're being asked to consider here that some sort of ownership transfer takes place with council through the Reserves and Other Lands Disposal Bill. Now, I think we can get our officers to explain how this might work. And then we're being given an option of the level of maintenance, at least in the interim until that transfer takes place, which could be, according to this paper, using the LINS process, a number of years if that's the case. So can I ask officers, and if we want to do that, can we, Chris, talk to us specifically about this rolled process? I mean, I take it the other processes, are we've got here. There's some significant costs and problems associated. This seems to be the simplest way to go, if the land is to be transferred to council.
Thank you, Chair Leggett. Yes, so the Rolled Act was the most appropriate transfer mechanism in law. It's a omnibus bill put up by LINS for the transfer of non-contentious land parcels for local government and public bodies. One of them is it has to be a sort of administrative change rather than anything contentious. And the council would make an application to LINS to have this parcel included. If it was accepted by LINS, it would be included in the next Rolled Act that was put before Parliament. And then it would be a case of it going through like that. We do not know when the next one will be. LINS is unable to tell us. It just, it's sort of prompted by the requirement of LINS at that time.
Okay, can I, just first question that I have is, does that application to LINS require a survey?
Yes, it does.
And so you've talked about costs of a survey in the other round. So that would be a cost to council for that survey. How much would that cost?
I don't have that information, but I can provide it later.
Okay. Yep, fair enough. So to me, the rolled thing is, I understand why we want to go that way, but we have talked about in the other things the fact that you do have to get a survey, which wasn't clear in the rolled approach. Well, I assumed it was, though, and there are costs associated with that. So, I mean, do you have a feel for? I mean, is it $2,000 or is it $20,000?
Anything that was provided at this time would be a guess. I'm not a surveyor. I don't know specifically.
No, we're not going to hold you to it.
It would be at the lower end of your estimate there.
Okay. Okay. No, unfortunately not. Sorry. Look, I'll open it up to the rest of the councillors now. We just wanted to get clarity about how that process goes. I'll take Councillor Morell first.
Thank you. I understand the sentiments about all of this. I get concerned when you start talking about public trust being involved and all these other organisations being involved in this taking years. At the moment, it's been sort of mowed by the Residents Association, or has been. Why can't we just continue to take over the?
No, it's not. It's not being mowed anymore there's no contract anymore.
So
nobody is maintaining it.
Okay, so why can't we just do it as part of maintaining what we do in Whitby and just keep doing what it's being done, and council officers, the council staff just doing it? I mean, it needs to be done, and I've got.
Yeah. A fair question, and the chief executive will.
Can I just say, we could pick up a lot of bits of land that way if we were just mowing. So my issue would be the precedent value of just mowing another bit of land. We typically only mow our own land, or so we don't do that. For obvious reasons, because people then just say, we'll put another bit in, get the mowing team, go out, do another bit. So We would prefer, as officers, to regularise that rather than just add it onto the mowing schedule.
Okay, thank you. Just one other thing then, in terms of it is history, and we have an organisation called Heritage New Zealand or whatever they call themselves. Is there a possibility that there would be some involvement from them that they could pick up some of the costs of doing this?
Not mowing.
No.
There may be some possibility around the grave in future. We've left the grave itself out of consideration. At some point, we would look for separate funding around that heritage aspect of the site.
You also talk about, or it also talks about, if we do take it over, it will need considerable, well, not considerable, a reasonable amount of restoration. In that is the restoration is around the trees around it. Is it the actual grave site that needs to be restored? What's inferred there?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the grave site I think we're talking about here in the paper. Yeah, but
To the Chair, we'll be looking at the wider maintenance of the site. There's a path up to the site. There are some pine trees on the site that will require work over time. There's also signage on the site that would require maintenance, like interpretation signs.
Okay, thank you.
other councillors? Yeah, Mayor Baker, well, Councillor Duncan first and then Mayor Baker.
I get worried when you talk about trees needing maintaining. I mean, we have a council policy where we don't deal with trees on properties. That's an expensive exercise in itself. I wonder too, do we restore graves up at the Porirua cemetery as well? I mean, is this something that council gets involved in? Also, I see in that we're going to do landscaping there as well. This is a prime example of when council takes something over, it gets bigger than Ben-Hur. I wonder if we couldn't just make a $2,000 grant to the Whitby Residents Association to hire Mr. Green or something to do the mowing and weed eating.
Do you want to answer that again?
The Mayor and I met with the Brady family and Jeff Moday from Whitby Residents Association. That wasn't an option on the table.
Yeah, the issue gets, people come and go and it gets lost. And
Just one further thing. I see in the paper that previous councils have discussed this over time and in each time have rejected it. And I think they were in a better position to pay for something like this than we are now with the infrastructure problems we've got. I think that it's probably not a good idea we do this.
Mayor Baker?
Thank you. Yes, the Residents Association have been maintaining it, but it's a little bit bigger than that. That grave gives us a walkway from Silverdale. Oh, what is it? Silverwood. Sorry, there's so many silvers up there now. It's from Silverwood.
You can't remember.
I know, and I was the developer in the original sections. So from there through down to Navigation Drive to the bus stop. Council own the land next door on the other side of the house, which was held for a walkway, which would cost us hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to put in. I do not see why we can't take this over to maintain the access that the subdivision needs to go around and get down to the bus stop. The bus will never go up the top. If council don't want to take the land itself, I think we just need to do the maintenance, because the maintenance provides an awful lot of people an access way that they would never have. The grave is in good condition, I would have thought at the moment. If it needs maintenance, the grave should get apply for a funding application, whoever's in charge of it, whether that is the council or the family, for a funding application to fix Heritage New Zealand. But I do think we can't keep putting this away. It has come to the table a number of times. And if we let it go wild, because I know the family cannot maintain it, then the community up there are going to go absolutely nuts at us anyway, because a lot of people think that we actually own it and it is just a place that we visit. So for me, I'd like to take the long-term approach and make it slowly go through and not cost council a lot of money. So if it can go through the LIN system slowly, I don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars like everybody else is saying. I do agree with you there, but there must be a slow system. In the meantime, we just take over the maintenance to maintain it from that point of view.
Councillor Ford.
Just a quick, or maybe a couple of quick questions. The Mayor's just mentioned about the walkway being beneficial to the developers that are there. Is there an opportunity to maybe plug into funding from the developer to help with the walkway at the very least? I had some questions around the option A and to council specifications, it being 16K. That 16K versus the 5K for just mowing and weeding, which I think Councillor Morrell is advocating for, possibly. What is the difference between that? I don't know if there's anyone here that can...
Can I just answer the developer thing for you? Because the developer's been and gone. They put the access path in to the grave.
Right.
And the road in from the other side so that there is a proper roadway so that people can go and maintain it. So the developer at the time did that.
Okay.
Through the chair, in regards to the maintenance question, the lower maintenance would be 12 to 13 cuts a year.
It's monthly.
Yeah. The higher maintenance would be 12 to 13 cuts a year. The lower would be every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
The higher cost would also include bringing the, obviously we have track standards for the council, as well as signage standards, maintenance for beds, etc., and that would be undertaken as well. The estimate of the higher cost was taken from our operations team. I don't have greater detail on that on it.
Sorry, so whenua tapu, that's mowed how often?
I'm afraid I'd have to put that to our cemeteries manager.
Sorry? 6 weekly?
6 weekly is our...
4 weekly. Can you speak into, pull the mic across for you? Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and then...
Sorry, through the chair, our normal level of service for most reserves, etc., 4 weekly. So it's a slightly lower level of service.
Okay. And then are there other private graves that we know of in the city that we might have, or we might be setting a precedent for, should this go ahead?
Don't forget this is a grave of some historical significance.
But through the chair, I think the answer is no.
Okay. Yep. Councillor Sauli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Izzy just asked one of my questions regarding setting a precedent, if there was any other significant. Another question I have too is actually, if we do nothing, will that grave just be overgrown and so forth? Is that what will happen? So my next, just for going from what the Mayor said, could that be a third option in terms of just maintaining that pathway? Because that seems like a third option to me.
Can I just point out that we're not talking about extra money. The Parks Manager is just going to have to suck it out of his budget, which is probably not filling him with joy. But on the other hand, this is not an overspend at year end that we are talking about. I just want you to be clear about that. We are saying we will do it within the current budget.
We're talking maintenance here, are we not, Wendy? We're not. So there will be other costs if we go through the rolled process. And the first one is getting survey, all right? And I assume we'll be sucking other costs, like the administrative cost, out of current budgets as well, in order to move through this process over time. Would that be fair?
That's right.
You won't be coming back to us and asking for more money.
That's right.
For a survey or whatever.
That's right.
Just so we know that, councillors. Councillor Trillin and then Councillor Hayward. Thanks.
Thank you, yeah. So I think based on what we've heard so far, and we've heard as well that the key thing of importance to the family is the mowing and weeding as well. I guess if we are looking at the options that are on the table, I guess I feel like I'd be leaning towards that one detailed at 20B currently. And I was just wondering, Mayor Baker, if you could clarify around what you were saying before, because I agreed with a lot of what you were saying. Was that in support of that option at 20B, or were you talking about a potential third option?
No, I was talking 20B, but taking the long version, doing that to start with and putting it in the LIN system to go forward, and just see what happens there.
So to be clear, that's 4A as opposed to 20B in terms of the recommendations, right?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I was looking at the main report itself.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Right. Councillor Hayward.
Good, Mr. Chair. This might be redundant, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are these circumstances where there are sites that are designated reserve under the district plan that also have additional utility to the community? What we've heard from the Mayor is that this is a heritage site, but it also has utility in terms of it being a thoroughfare for those who are going through for public transport action, active walking, so forth. Do we have any other circumstances where that is also the case within Porirua City Council already that may also help shape the Kōrero? Kia ora.
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but our reserves do provide utility all the time. They all have things like walkways, buildings on them, all sorts of things occupy are on our reserves. So I'm not sure if that's your question.
Yeah, go on, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once up.
Yep.
I guess to clarify the question further is, are council officers aware of any circumstance where there is a heritage site marked in the district plan that council currently own that is used not exclusively for heritage, but also for other purposes, including thoroughfare for walkways across adjacent properties?
At the risk of being controversial, the Marines Hall does fit into that category.
Kia ora.
Let's not go there. Councillor Waddle, I was going to ask Taku whether you wanted to make a contribution to this in terms of, because you're going to be talked to about this if we go through this rolled process.
Yeah. What sits deeply within my thinking, that it's a tupuna, and it's a family generational responsibility. Take care of their tupuna, which is what we do for generations and generations. So that's where my head's sitting and thinking. The tupuna, and that sits with the family, the grandkids, the mokos, to look after their tupuna.
I understand, and in this case, we're being told that that the family are unable to do this.
So there's no generations that come down through that whakapapa line.
No.
That's where my...
Look, I hear where you're coming from. Yeah, I think we all hear where you're coming from. So,
Whilst I...
Morel? Oh, sorry.
Whilst I agree with what Taku's saying, the reality of it is this is more than just a gravesite. This is quite a bit of land around it as well. And it is history, and we've got history. And for those people who have lived in Whitby for a long time, it's been a very important part of the history of the area. And so, that's the dilemma I have. It's a cost factor, but I also think there's it's important to preserve preserve the history and because it does tell a story. We have Brady's Bay, we have a number of issues around, or not issues, areas around there which are very important to the history of the area. So, I mean, I'm reluctant, but I'm going to support it because I think it's important that we do preserve that part of the history of that for that part of the area.
Thanks, Councillor Morrell. Councillor Ngao.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I understand the sentimental value of it, and I think just trailing on from what Taku said, in my heart it says I can only think about the motherland where I'm from, and we, the family maintain the gravesite. Now, I think if we go across Porirua, I think you'll find a lot of historical people that have played a huge part in our city that are being maintained by their family. I do understand the sentimental value, and I do understand the importance of it, but unfortunately for me, I won't be supporting this.
Sorry, I'll get you now, Councillor Ward.
I was initially only going to throw Taku under the bus anyway, but I think having grown up in Whitby all my life, I saw early maps during my childhood before the area of Navigation Drive was actually developed, and there was this little spot on the map that said the Brady gravesite. Didn't know how to get to it, didn't know where to get to it. Now we can actually get to it. I think we need to take that as a bit of something that we can look after as a city because of the heritage that Councillor Morrell has talked about. We've got Brady's Reserve, we've got Brady's Bay. So I think at least we need to look after the maintenance around there and even look at the rolled process.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Baker.
I'll just say one more thing, sorry. We do need to look at it as an access point of view, as a connection, so people can get the public transport because the buses do not go up to that subdivision. And this small grave area actually does give us the access, instead of us spending hundreds of $1,000s on the land that we hold next door and putting a pathway that will be a zigzag path with lights and really steep. We could ask the CE to look at selling off that piece of land that we hold that is on a cliff and put it into that. Just putting it out there.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. And I think you've raised... does anyone else want to... Okay, I think you... Councillor Duncan.
Just following on from Mayor Baker's comment, I think that's an admirable idea, and why don't we go back to look at that before we make any decisions about...
Go back to look at...
Looking at selling the piece of land to actually fund what we're planning to do with this other piece of land.
Well, that complicates issues today, doesn't it? Because
It does, but I'm saying maybe we could maintain it in the short term, mow it, ask Wendy to look at that piece of land.
So where is that piece of land exactly?
It's next to the grave site.
Picture.
To the right, the picture to the left. It comes down by the comes down almost by the link road.
Maintain that.
Yeah, it's a large piece of land that comes down almost by the link road. So it would be I know I've thrown the officers under the bus doing this, and they would need to find that piece of land, but I'd rather we just agreed in the short term to maintain it while we looked into this option.
Do you want to construct a motion to...
Well,
or no?
Can I just suggest that we will bring that additional thing about the adjoining property back to you if that's what you so desire, rather than go through an amendment here. But I'm happy to take a note and do that.
Yes, please, that we take that. I know Councillor Weehappy was first and then Councillor Morrell.
Actually, I support that idea because as it stands, I wouldn't be supporting this as it stands, this particular paper either.
We're still going to consider this paper, though. we're going to do, just to be clear, the Chief Executive has said that she will instruct officers to bring back a separate paper on this additional, or this piece of land that council owns, in terms of, and then we can have a look at disposal process or potential disposal process or pros and cons for that. All right. So that's what's being suggested by the Chief Executive. Is that correct, Wendy? Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, Councillor Morell, and then Councillor Hayward.
Look, I came into this debate thinking at the start, before it opened, I had some concerns. But the more I hear my fellow councillors, we're talking about history here. We're talking about really in the big picture, not a huge amount of money. We talk about families who are looking after. These people were here long before the families. We maintain the whēngi tapu. We mow the lawns around those grave sites, and we don't get people to pay for them. And here we are. We can keep the Marine Hall, which has cost us $1 million or millions of dollars to keep the bloody thing, because to go through a process, and here we are sitting around here arguing about something that is history and also a minor cost in the big picture. Now, I'm one for saving money, don't get me wrong, but this is history. It gives us access way, and we have to look at the big picture. If you want to, I'm astounded at some of the comments that some of you councillors have made, and so I'm irritated, and I'm determined that we need to process this and we need to proceed with this. We are talking about history of that area and a small amount of money for a process. And councillors make decisions around here and spend money like you're going out of fashion. This isn't a huge amount of money in the long run, but it gives us both. So just think about that.
Points well made, Councillor Morell. I'm going to take Councillor Hayward, Mayor Baker, and then Councillor Duncan. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to trouble you with polemic. I just want to understand from as a point of order, why would we not allow this item to be tabled, left on the table? Because I think one of the comments from one of the councillors that has introduced this confusion is that actually the prudent approach as decision makers around this table require one more piece of information into the mix. Therefore, we could not in good conscience, I certainly could not in good conscience, vote on the item on the table as it is today. If council officers provide more information with this item being left on the table to a subsequent meeting, then I think that it's potentially a pathway forward to reasonably and prudently make a decision. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. You are, just to be clear, so this one more item of information is about the piece of land that council owns and throwing that into the mix in terms
That was my understanding from the Mayor's commentary.
Can I?
Okay, Mayor Baker, I'll let you go next.
Because I've thrown that out there, probably what I'm asking you to do is vote that on number 4A, that we mow it until the next piece of information comes back, because the councillors seem to be worried about the money side of it. I agree with Councillor Morell, we need to do it, but this option of the land next door, they need to know about that so they can make the decision. And seeing I've thrown it out straight away, in the meantime, I'd like it mowed till this item comes back. So I'd rather we just voted and had 4A, we mow it monthly until it comes back again. And you'd need to give the officers a couple of months.
Yeah, no, 4B, you mean?
4B, sorry,
4B.
B?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, B.
Noted.
Yeah.
Councillor Duncan?
I just want to congratulate Councillor Morell on a 360-degree turn there. Well,
You're talking material related to the long-term plan. Look, but fair point. I mean, does anyone want to talk before say anything more before? Because we've all had a chance to have a reasonable say, I think. So I think where we're at is that what we will be moving is 4B. That we will vote on 4B to mow and maintain the land in the interim until we get the report back another report back from officers regarding the adjacent piece of land and how these things fit together. And I think that's what we will be considering next time. All right.
Sorry, Chair, can you give us a time frame on when that report will be coming back to council?
Yeah, well, I can't, but we can ask the officers. No, not exactly. But it, this has gone on for years. We are voting to maintain the site in the meantime, so I don't think it matters too much.
We need to, because
Okay, well, yeah, we can take the recommendation in parts. But I must say that I too have some sympathy for, so my thoughts go out, I have some sympathy for Councillor Morrell and Mayor Baker's position in terms of this land and its historical importance and its public good. So I don't think that's unreasonable. One more thing, Councillor Duncan, and then you can...
Yeah, no, just in terms of new information that came in, what the Mayor spoke about, access way, etc., didn't strike me in the report, and I think more information on that would be quite good.
Yeah, I think maybe that public good side of the report was not emphasised enough, but if officers can note that. Yeah. Right, so what I'm going to do now is... we have the report in front of us. I'm going to, and we know that we're going to get another report back, and on where we'll be able to make a decision, a longer term decision. But I'm going to take the recommendations in part, like each one separately, and I suspect that what we will be voting on, what the intent I hear, is that we will just be agreeing to 4B. That allows us to maintain the site in the meantime until we get another report back. Okay, so I'm now going to put, we've already put recommendation 1 that we've received the report. I'll move to recommendation 2, that's we agree to recommend that we agree that council takes over ownership through this Reserves and Other Lands Disposal Bill. So I'm now going to put that, all those in... I'm going for 2. I'm going through each individual recommendation so that we get to... All right, so we're going to vote individually on each recommendation.
Can we?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's what I
think you need to.
Go on. Councillors. These processes get rather complicated in terms of what you should and shouldn't do. So I think I, as mover, and who was seconded? No, Mayor Baker. What we're going to move that items 2 and 3 be withdrawn in the meantime. So that's my recommendation. And do we vote on that now?
You don't have to vote.
We don't have to vote. We've just withdrawn. All right. So now we will vote on our recommendations. One, that we receive the report, obviously, and 4B, right? Not 4A. So what I'm putting now is we're agreeing to receive the report and that we agree that council undertake interim maintenance of the grave site, mowing and weed eating on a 6-weekly cycle. So that's the motion I'm putting. Councillor Morell, you have a...
Well, that doesn't mean that
It's coming back. Yes, it's coming back.
Well, it doesn't say that in the recommendations, though. That
No,
it'll come back to council.
It will. We withdrew. They will come back. All right. They will come back as part of the next paper. All right. So we still understand that we have to make a substantive decision on those on that point. All right. Okay. So I'm now going to put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Finally.
Pretty straightforward.
Right. So thank you, Marguerite and Mescal. You can stay for the next item or you can leave, but we'll let you know when this comes back to council anyway. All right. Thank you. Right. Item 6.2. Let's hope that this is not quite as complicated. I'll move. So item 6.2 is Porirua City Council traffic bylaw, specifically related to Morere Street. I have a seconder. I've moved it. Councillor Hayward, thank you. Ethel has come to the table. I'm taking the paper as read. This is pretty clear, and maybe the two Titahi Bay councillors can make some points, but does anybody have any comments or questions to ask? Councillor Hayward?
Kia ora, Mr Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank council officers for proceeding in such a accelerated time frame to get this item resolved. Not every issue that we have around the council table is contentious or simple or quick. This one, however, has come with some speed but has not diminished the engagement with the community. I want to talk about Shai, the owner of the dairy at Morere Street. He's been there for 22 years. He says, look, when people are unsafe, he's concerned about it because if people, what affects them affects him as a business owner. This is part of a series of improvements made to that section of road so as to improve safety for people in cars, pedestrians, and those who use the parking spaces around that section of road. I'm really happy to see that further work's been made on this. I hope that it will finally resolve some of the urgent safety issues with regards to cars travelling down that little section of Morere Street. So we're supporting the measure. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Does anyone else want to? Yep, Councillor Duncan.
As the other Titahi Bay representative, I want to congratulate officers on coming up with this quickly as well. We were up at the opening of the new Te Ahuru Moai houses along Morere the other day, and there's going to be a lot more traffic through that street. This is going to make it a lot safer and simpler for those people. So thanks for your work.
Yes.
As a non-Titahi Bay councillor.
A non-what?
Titahi Bay councillor.
That's right.
Kia ora ana first. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Hey, thanks for this. This is slightly related, but maybe not. The family of Pui Healy family that had their daughter had an accident that was in Seavers Grove. I just wanted to get an update from officers. So around the safety stuff, because we're talking about safety and all this stuff and how fast we're moving out in Titahi Bay. In the east, it isn't moving as quickly. Just wanted around safety measures around that. Thought it was fitting around this stuff.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think we want to do it here.
It's an opportunity with our staff here who's our road safety.
I agree, but it's not related to this specific what we're being asked to consider here specifically, this bylaw.
100% understand. Where's the opportunity to raise that?
However, I would ask I would ask the CEO to, I note your comments and they're really important around safety, to bring that back to a future meeting and have an updated report in terms of what's happening with the safety items in the rest of Porirua.
Yeah, cool.
Particularly the east. Or a workshop, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Taku.
Just to mention too, I agree with the two Titahu Bay councillors. Ngāti Toa supports that position as well. Coming down Mōrere Street back in the day, it was a nice little racing track, but it's too busy.
Yeah, thank you, Taku. One more point, Councillor Hayward.
Sorry, I apologise that I didn't bring this up in the afterwards, but this is actually a question for officers. If this recommendation is approved today, when can I go out and watch the contractors put those lines up? I want to know, when is that going to get done?
Just like the Marines Hall. Sorry, there was a question asked, Athol. Do you have a...
Through the chair, slightly weather dependent, but we'll get our contractors onto it ASAP. So I don't want to say within the month, but we'll try and get it done.
Yes, you could never promise when a contract will be delivered these days. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions for Athol? Right, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. That brings us to the close of the meeting at, what is the time? 9:21. Thank you, everybody. We'll now move into a workshop.
I'm going to open up the extraordinary council meeting. Obviously, we're on Zoom again. So I've got no apologies. Everybody's here. So we go straight into public forum. We've got Graham Ebbett and the Titai Bay Residents Association. I don't know if you ladies are coming up. Oh, sorry, Stuart. We've got public forum first. Graham, just you? Okay, just put your microphone on.
Thank you. Well, Madam Mayor and members of the council, my name's Graham Ebbett and I'm the chairman of the Titai Bay Residents Association. I'm speaking for them and also in support of the community group in Titai Bay, Your Say. On a personal level, I'm an industrial control system engineer, and I'm here to speak to the agenda item, which is the Central City Wastewater Retention Tank. We made submission to the long-term plan opposing tanks. We saw it as a short-term band-aid and doing nothing for the city population growth. We sought an upgrade of the main pipeline and a shift of the storage to ponding at the sewage plant. That has been ignored. Officers reported that we did not favour infrastructure as a city priority. Nothing could be further from the truth. We saw the sewage plant as the city's #1 item of infrastructure. The situation now is that Porirua City Council is seeking resource consent to discharge partially treated sewage. In fact, that is an overflow of simply filtered raw sewage. That is because it has no storage, the sewage plant has no storage for heavy rainfall, and it's unlikely to get resource consent. The failure of prudent long-term financial planning with up-to-date catchment population figures has been subject of our complaint to the Auditor General. We were referred the long-term plan process, but for us that's been unsuccessful, and our complaint will now be revived. Justification for storage tanks has been that the upgrade of the pipeline to the sewage plant would cost so much more. But now the situation's changed. The main line has collapsed and must be upgraded anyway. Council now has a crisis, a huge expenditure and no budget. Can the $50 million tank idea now be justified? We respectfully suggest that the Council defers a decision today and seeks an officer's report on the best way forward from here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Graham. Any questions for Graham? Councillor Morell, it's a question, I assume?
I was just going to ask him what, in his opinion, is the best way forward.
Well, I think that the best thing to do is to find out now what the cost of upgrading the line over to the sewage plant is, and compare that with the $50 million proposed for the tank and other tanks, all added up to, I think, 120 million it is. And and then to be doing something about the ponding that's required for the sewage plant, which is really looking at stage 2, which was designed in 1987 for 160,000 population.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Ebbett? No? Oh, Councillor Ford?
Just a quick clarification. So you want us to delay a decision that will help fix the problem?
Yeah, delay a decision today, just in order to then review, back to square one, and review what the costs are of the various options.
All right, so you just want to continue letting it overflow. Thank you.
Well, yes.
Okay, no other questions then. Okay, thank you, Graham.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've got no conflicts of interest declarations from anybody? No? Oh, Mari, I hadn't had you down. Are you wanting to speak? Come forward. I'll allow you. Sorry, Murray.
Yes. Michelle sent an email, and I sent an email to our two councillors, and we've asked them to just ask a few questions on our behalf today, and I've got some copies if you'd like to have a
You
look.
did email me those, yes. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You can leave them, and if the other councillors haven't seen them, we can pass them round.
Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. Okay, I've got no notifications of extraordinary business, so we'll move straight on to the report. The requirement for the Central City wastewater tank. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Ford. I'll hand it over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I really don't have too much to add. The report hopefully speaks for itself. I'm here in a capacity as regulator, not applicant. I think as set out under section 168A of the RMA, this is not uncommon, and that's why we have a independent commissioner involved to review the application as well. So really this is just about approving the lodgement of the notice of requirement so we can actually get on and process it. The applicant has requested that it be notified, so there will be ample opportunity for interested parties to make a submission, and if there are enough submissions, there will be a hearing which would be convened by the independent commissioner.
Okay, thank you. So questions, councillors, anyone? Councillor?
Yeah, kia ora, thank you, Mayor Baker. Could someone, I don't know if Stuart would be the most appropriate person, or someone speak to the concerns raised by Graham in public forum?
I'm certainly not the appropriate person to speak to those.
I can give an overview, Councillor Trillin, in the sense that this is actually it's a long process, and it's we've already gone through significant due diligence to get to this point. The Wellington Water expertise, the engineers, and Steve is in the room today, have done their engineering analysis of what is the best solution. As you know, we have system-wide issues, and the wastewater treatment plant, the mains that go to it, the tanks, the pump stations are all part of a system, and this is a critical part of the system as the city grows, particularly for that rain event that floods our wastewater network. So any more technical a question, you will have to direct to the engineers, but we have gone through a very long process to get to this as the preferred option. You've had visibility over points in that process, and this is a regulatory process that will further test that that through a regulatory system. So,
Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Can we just reassure Mari and Michelle that those questions are with the Chief Executive and will be answered for them?
They will either be answered directly or they will be answered through the process that we are undertaking.
Councillor Morrell?
Yeah, I just, and fully supportive of this, don't get me wrong. I just, since in the last few weeks, we've obviously had a major event on the main highway there, and what implications is there any implications around that with regard to this? Does it, I mean, I know where it feeds into it, but I'm not sure that pipe feeds into this system.
It's all part of the wastewater system, so it is relevant. We will be coming back to councillors in the next couple of weeks with options for upgrades for that pipe, which will require some reprioritisation within our current budget. We do have, as you know, quite a significant uplift in investment in our long-term plan. It will displace something else, and we haven't, Wellington Water's doing the analysis around exactly, where we will reprioritise that investment.
Okay, so yes, Councillor Hayward?
Thank you, Kōrero Matua. My question is, Stuart, in your capacity as on behalf of the regulator, are you able to give some commentary as to the likely time frame if it does go to public notification and hearing? What is the likely time frame for these things to play out, including the time frame for submissions and these? What would be reasonable in your mind? Not trying to put you on the spot.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. So we have had a pre-assessment of the application prior to this being prepared. It's in good shape, and the applicant has requested notification. So I'd imagine it will be a matter of a few weeks to actually assess the application, and then most likely, if there is further information required, that would be the first step. So if we do actually think there's further information before we notify it, we would request that from the applicant. We would then assess that further information, and then we would make the decision to notify. So it could be a matter of weeks, and it could be slightly longer than that, 6 weeks, potentially to notify. Submitters would have 20 working days, a month, to make a submission. And then there would be, once that time frame closes, there would be another month or two to assess the information, and then if a hearing was required, it would then be arranged. So we're probably talking 3 to 6 months to get through the approval process, and ultimately, as the requiring authority, Council has the ability to confirm, modify or withdraw the notice of requirement before it becomes a designation. So I would like to be more specific, but 3 to 6 months I think would be a fairly sort of broad timeframe for what can be achieved.
Yep.
Following on from that, can council officers give some commentary as to what likely impacts that has on other adjacent pieces of hardware, for instance, Bottomley Park pipeline, as well as any, as what has been mentioned before, the VHCA asset that was up north of this site that is damaged. What commentary can you give in terms of the impacts of the repair or upgrades where they are being made, and how that would impact when it is going to go live?
It's an unrelated process. This is a regulatory process, and those are capital works that are being undertaken either through Kōrero or by Wellington Water. So they're unrelated processes. So this regulatory process will take its normal regulatory path, and there's no conflict.
Sorry, but I guess I just want to tease down on this. Obviously, any delay to the proceeding of this notification or this process, this consent process, may have an impact on other projects that are adjacent to it. Bottomley Park pipeline, for instance. Is there some level of risk that the council acknowledges in terms of the timeliness of these projects, and whether or not that's going to affect how quickly these items become operational?
It's probably a bit far out, but I might defer to Steve on the Steve Hutchinson on the build program. It's not strictly relevant to the regulatory process in front of you today, but Steve can perhaps share his views.
The other projects, the Eastern Porirua pipeline that's going across from Bottomley Park, interfaces with the edge of this construction project, and similarly the Parramatta pipeline may interface with the northern edge of that project. Now, I can't recall exactly what the timeline is. I know the Eastern Porirua Bottomley Park is in the sort of design phases, but I just don't know the timing well enough to answer the questions or the risks of this process extending.
Perhaps I can eliminate any doubt here. If things are in a design phase, then it's probably further back along the line in terms of time frame compared to the work that's been that is on notice, this item here. Would that be a fair assumption to make? So if Bottomley Park is in design phase, that means it probably hasn't gone through, say, consenting and so forth. It's still behind. So I'm just trying to get a sense here of, even if you can't say precisely the time frame, that is still work that is still going to be started after, or going to what council believes is the plan for this consent, is already being advanced.
Bottomley Park has quite a different consent process. I understand they've already got consents in place for the work down there through a different process, which is a planning thing, which I, as an engineer, I won't speak to.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, mine relates to the item 7 on page 4. A designation as a form of land use approval. It provides more legal certainty and site protection than a resource consent. How does that work?
Yeah, so it forms essentially a spot zoning in the district plan. So essentially here's a carve out of the district plan, so it replaces the underlying zoning. So it does have a little bit more certainty than a resource consent. And it's quite a traditional approach to consenting, but it was to actually give infrastructure providers just a bit more certainty in terms of planning and building essential infrastructure.
The thing was item 4 up in the summary there. It says it forms part of the wastewater joint venture with Wellington City Council. They're going to be paying something towards this for us.
In negotiation.
Yeah. Okay. Any other? Oh, yes.
So I've just got one supplementary point to make. I would point out that this is not the only approval required for the project. Okay. So resource consents from Greater Wellington Regional Council are required. It does impinge on a significant natural area, part of a wetland. So we don't control that process. And so although the designation is the key land use approval, it's not the only approval needed. So that will be subject to Greater Wellington. The project team, I know, have that in hand. They have had discussions, and that will be subject to an application in the very near future.
Councillor Morell, you want to have a a question?
No, it's not a question. It's a statement, really. But
like something you wrote. Away you go.
Well, I think it's time. I just think we need, as a council, and to reassure the Titahi Bay Residents Association and the various parties there that continue to have a go at us about having no concerns or a lack of action to do with the sewage system in this part of the world. And I don't think there's one councillor around here who does not believe who believes that we are doing everything in our best interest to serve the whole city and the community. And, we're always going to have some problems, but we rely on expert advice to fix this. And so I just want to assure them, I can only speak for myself, but that we are very concerned about the infrastructure. We're doing everything we can, and we don't want to continue being at war with them or them being at war with us, because we are here for the right intentions to fix the problems.
Thank you. I think we all agree. We're here for the right intentions. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Carried. Thank you. Meeting closed at 9:48.